Information about latest scientific discoveries made by physicists can turn upside down humans' understanding of the reality. A new physical discipline has appeared: quantum entropic logic theory, which seemingly unites incompatible concepts. But in reality, it most accurately reflects modern state of science, when scientific discoveries seem truly unbelievable from the point of view of a common people. All main achievements of quantum entropic logic theory are based not only on cognition of a micro-world, but to a greater extent on a fundamentally new approach to description of a physical reality. Differing from traditional concepts of quantum mechanics, which directly deals with physical properties of objects, quantum entropic logic originates from more fundamental and primary concept, state of systems entropy. From this point of view, all physical quantities which characterize a system are secondary manifestations only, defined by its entropic potential. We speak about arbitrary systems, greater and lesser ones. Quantum entropic logic, it is a description of any objects in terms of non-linear conditions, independent from sizes. The methods may be equally successfully applied to both microparticles and the universe on the whole. The main conclusion of the quantum entropic logic theory can be formulated in brief as follows. A matter, it is substance, and all known physical fields, is not the only basis of the world around, but only an insignificant part of the aggregate quantum reality. It is very interesting that in quantum entropic logic, information is a quantitative value that characterizes a system. i.e., information is material. Information itself is an objective physical quantity along with the others, such as mass and energy of a system. We must note that it is the objective quantity which does not depend on what we think about this information, measure we it or not, and how we measure it. A system anyway will contain a certain amount of information, just like, for example, an object of a material world has a certain mass. The essence of quantum entropic logic, and at the same time its exclusive peculiarity, is that information entropy suits perfectly for a role of the primary substance of all. Creators of quantum entropic logic theory, Sviatoslav Nesterov and Theodor van Hoven, believe that the key idea leading to the great unification of gravitation and the quantum theory is a reformulation of approaches to the nature not in the terms of matter and energy, but in the terms of information entropy. The great John Archibald, who presented to the world the term black hole among others, a patriarch of American physics, was one of the first to speak about it. This is a citation from his autobiography about role of information published a few years ago. My life in physics is divided into 3 periods. During the first, spreading from the beginning of my career to early 50s of the last century, I was possessed with the idea that everything is particles. I searched for methods to upbuild all basic elements of matter, neutrons, protons, mesons, etc., from the lightest and most fundamental particles, electrons and photons. I call the second period everything is fields. Since the time when I fell in love with general the relativity theory and gravitation in 1958, and until quite recently, I upheld the view to the world as the world consisting of fields. The world in which something seeming to be as a particles, in reality is a manifestation of electric and magnetic fields, gravitational fields, and space-time itself. But now, I'm overwhelmed with the idea that everything is information. The more I think about quantum mysteries and our strange ability to comprehend the world we are living in, the more I see probably a fundamental meaning of logic and information as a basis of physical theory. Paul Davies said about it in his work. Usually we think about the world as about something consisting of simple clusters of material particles, and we perceive information as a derivative characteristic of a percent related to certain organized states of matter. But perhaps it is the opposite. It seems that the universe actually is a trick of the primary information, and material objects are its complex secondary manifestation. Davies ends his work with the following. If information is really must replace substance as the primary substance of cosmos, then even a greater reward awaits us. From the modern point of view, brains, matter, produce thoughts, mental information. But if matter is a form of unorganized information, then consciousness is not such a mystery as it seemed before. Therefore, any systems in the surrounding reality may be regarded as an assembly of memory cells of a non-linear quantum computer. Then, the whole universum is regarded as a global and unified for all reality non-linear quantum computer with a capital N, a particular universal matrix. That is why a role of quantum entropic logic is extremely important for comprehension of the nature's laws, for even deeper understanding of fundamental laws of surrounding reality on the deepest levels. The usual computer is like a knowledge of one program and a certain ability to orientate oneself within it. Here we see only one result of its work, a classic reality, and we study laws which are true within one and the same program. But now we start to realize laws in accordance to which any program work. We started to understand how the computer itself and its operating system work. These are the laws according to which the matrix transmits us one or another perception in various time vectors. We go beyond the scope of familiar local program and note many other programs or temporal vectors of reality which are loaded into an operative memory along with ours. We begin to understand an interrelation of all these temporal program levels and can forecast more accurately a result of a transition from one to another. Information, entropy, has a special role in quantum entropic logic. As we know, at quantum approach, systems may be in a non-linear state when an object is simply a virtual one, i.e. it has no matter in it, no energy fields, and it cannot be described using quantitative values applied in the classic physics. But it can be described in terms of quantum entropic logic. Measure of information entropy in entropic logic is defined on the basis of entropic potential concept, initially offered by Sviatoslav Nesterov. Quantum entropic logic theory does not differentiate information and entropy, but links them directly with energy. Changing of information entropy is accompanied by changing of energy, and information exchange is directly related to energy exchange. Quantum entropic logic theory has offered a formula for radiation quanta of information entropic wave, which relates it with energy of a system through Planck's constant. A direct relation between energy and fulfilled logic operations allows making a bridge to physical processes accompanying work of consciousness because it is directly related to logic operations. The whole classic world with its matter and energy fields is only one small and quite insignificant part of the universe. Everything considered by many to be the basis of microcosm and the only existing objective reality, regarded by quantum entropic logic as a projection, a worn shadow falling from a vector of state to a quantization axis at evolution of information entropic or terminal field, the source aggregate quantum reality. Quantum entropic logic fairly solves a problem of out-of-limit states of the universe in known concept of the Big Bang, when a question of what was before this moment arises. Classic physicists in their attempts to solve this problem are trying to imagine what the state of reality was before the Big Bang in the universe. The Big Bang theory is the main theory of the space appearance. This theory describes space evolution from a split second after something has happened to turn the universe into existence, but it says nothing about the time zero itself. The Big Bang theory does not include the bang itself. It says nothing about what had banged, why, and frankly speaking, had there been any bang at all. The Big Bang is a complete mystery for us. For many decades, the main of all cosmological questions remains unanswered. Only in the beginning of the new century was made an assumption that force that caused the Big Bang was an information entropic field transforming into energy. These forces were so strong that not only they preceded the bang, but they revealed something more, something that makes the universe expand for more than 13 billion years already. Quantum entropic logic helps to understand properly the meaning of some well-known concepts, operated by esoteric literature and the Eastern philosophy. This includes yin and yang concepts, which Western rational mind vainly tries to fit into a framework of the classic ideas, when in terms of quantum entropic logic, this elusive duality explained easily. Yin and yang is a superposition of two non-linear temporal states. Many things evidence that yin-yang correspond to a simple case of a two-level system in a quantum world. It is the system with two orthogonal states, for example with minimal and maximal entropy. This is a description in entropic logic terms, as a vector of two-level system condition of two mutually exclusive states in a superposition. On the one hand, yin-yang is a one unit, but one of them cannot be expressed in terms of the other. But on another hand, we can say about their possible redistribution in a system, about a transition between levels. When they say that yin exists in yang and yang exists in yin, they presume their inseparable integrity. The Book of Changes says, the yang is a Tao, a basis, cause of changes, beginning and essence of life and death, a treasury of spirit and light. It is a basis. Lao Tzu. Someone believes that the whole theory of changes is based on one postulate. Yin plus yang equals Tao. But it is not just an amount sum, but a superposition of states. Thus appear complications in understanding at the classic approach. As a matter of fact, this refers to something called in quantum entropic logic a non-linear source of reality. Notably, that in theory, yin-yang, a vector of Tao state, is regarded in a simplest basis of two orthogonal temporal states of the universe. But even at such simple model of two-level system state vector, many things can be understood. Yin is usually associated to a state of higher entropy, it can be associated with zero, when yang with 1. In the simplest case of a dynamic balance, transitions between levels are equally possible. In other words, a system periodically releases entropy, transiting from yin to yang, from level 0 to 1, and at the same time instantly absorbs it during the next temporal cycle, in back transit from 1 to 0. In accordance with beliefs of ancient philosophers, these two forces, yin and yang, are the main in the nature. Taoist wise men thought that there is an infinite process of interaction and transformation of these two principles in the universe. Alternating yin and yang, that's the way of the universe, says the Book of Changes. This circular flow is universal, it happens in greater and lesser systems. In essence, it means that description of a greater system, Tao, may be carried out in the same way as a description of a lesser system, quanta entropy. In this respect, it is considered that such duality of yin-yang relations is the main link in evolution of systems of any nature. If we pull this link, we could untangle the most complex chain of entropic relations interactions in a compound system. Some words must be said about Qi energy, which is regarded by Chinese philosophy as a fundamental principle of the universe, a link that connects the universe. Qi is a concept on the one hand philosophical and spiritual, on the other, at the same time, quite material one. Qi is one of the ancient hieroglyphs which designates steam, air, breath, etc. Sometimes, Qi is perceived as the breath of the universe. In a more comprehensive sense, Qi energy is a manifestation of all known and unknown fields, acting on all planes of the reality. In terms of Qi energy and the initial breath, yin, calm and condensing, is more entropically dense, when yang is less dense, but with greater quantum information, diffused and mobile. Transitions between levels are described in the following way. Dense yin turns into less dense yang because of Qi energy flow movement, and it is accompanied by birth and growth. Yin is a feminine. Back transition results in filling of yin with contents, structural quantum information, which corresponds to planting of non-local seeds. including spirit seeds to a dense entropic ground, a domain of yang as a masculine. Therefore, Qi energy is information flows that appear at transition between levels of two-level system. Chinese philosophy considers Wuzi the unlimited, something that precedes appearance of the universe, a beginning of the real world. Wang Xingyue, who lived in Qing dynasty times, wrote about Wuzi in the Tai Chi Chuan theory. Tai Chi was born from Wuzi, or finite nothing. It is a source of dynamic and stationary states, mother of yin and father of yang. If they move, they separate. If they stay still, they combine. As Zhuo Zhonghua write in the same book, infinite emptiness, which existed before creation of the world and from which the universe appeared, was called by Chinese philosopher Wuzi, or finite nothing. It is said that before the creation there was nothing, but at the same time something was. We neither know what was it or where it comes from, but definitely there was something. This something cannot be explained rationally. Its existence is only supposed, as the existence of some object that is vaguely looming in a mist. Ancient Chinese philosophers described it as the presence of absence, or non-material material. It has a shape, but it is shapeless. It has density, but it is intangible. This is an incoherent uncertainty. You stand in front of it, but it has no limits. You walk behind it, and it has no back. It is not a material object. It is a source of movement and immobility. It is considered that everything in the universe, including yin and yang, origin constantly from this inconceivable source. Lao Tzu called it Tao. I Ching calls it Tai Chi. According to Taoist cosmology, before the existence of the universe, there was a state of complete emptiness. In this original state, there was not a single movement. Time concept cannot be applied to a state of original emptiness, because there was nothing to be a point of starting time. Everything was empty. Ancient Taoists gave a name to this state. Wuzi, Wu, means absence, negation, emptiness. Zi, in this word, although it can be read as Qi, life energy, means higher, maximal. And thus, Wuji means higher state of emptiness. So this concept in its parameters is almost completely identical to a concept of non-linear quantum source of reality in quantum entropic logic theory or singularity point in the Big Bang theory. It precedes multidimensional information entropic flows of all direction and our basic vector of time. At the same time, in a form of analog quantum information, this non-linear state contains the idea of all manifested. So, in accordance with the cosmological concept of quantum entropic logic theory, a non-linear quantum source of reality contains a realized world as though inside itself. It embraces a multitude of local forms and elements of a reality. In other words, it contains the same amount of information. According to calculation of Theodor van Hoven, about 10 in 169th degrees bits, as the whole universe, but in lesser beyond measure, even tiny space, billion times lesser than a proton, thus creating a gigantic, monstrous density of a primary matter and entropy, complexity of a structure. At the same time, this non-linear structure of pro-matter has an orthogonal temporal vector, in other words, directed from the future to the past in relation to our universe. Van Hoven defined this state as an analog to a superconsciousness or divine entity. Here's an extract of Pope John Paul II's speech at the ceremony of Van Hoven awarding with the highest award of Vatican Academy of Science. The greatest achievement of Theodor van Hoven is that he discovered God as a natural phenomenon and described him mathematically, which allowed creation of devices capable of antedating the divine providence. Evolution of nature and history of human society development must be supplemented and reviewed with consideration of laws discovered by Theodor van Hoven. We have already spoken about consciousness term. This phenomenon may be successfully described by quantum entropic logic. To do it, we need to formulate several constructive definitions. Quantum entropic logic is an instrument, if we are ready to accept that the main characteristic of a consciousness is a decrease of entropic potential of correlated systems, then it is enough to apply theoretical methods of quantum entropic logic. Quantum entropic approach can give absolutely new data for deep understanding of peculiarities and laws of consciousness functioning regardless of its organization forms. Consciousness is an internal parameter of an open system, which means an ability to distinguish and implement some admissible states with decreasing of entropic potential of a system. Consciousness, it is that internal parameter of a system which can realize a reduction of wave function. If there is no consciousness, then an environment will impose its laws, and the state will be reduced to one of high entropy states from a set of admissible states. But consciousness can realign its process and switch to a state of entropy, which consciousness considers the most advantageous. There is no need to emphasize that a consciousness is the same material part of a system, because we are reviewing the most general case in terms of quantum entropic logic, which postulates a material character of information entropic interactions. For example, any our thought is an implementation of one of our admissible quantum states. A computer in our heads is a quantum computer, with all resulting from its consequences. That is why there is a direct relation to esoteric, which is based on application of quantum properties of this computer. Non-linear correlations, psychic energy. It has a possibility to use magic non-linear properties of entangled qubit states of his quantum computer. It turns out that all esoteric practices in their own way mean that a man tries to switch his brain from a classic mode of operation to a mode of quantum nonlinear states. Engaging himself in mystic practices, a man tries to involve a quantum nonlinear resource of entangled states and control it, doing the same task with physicists who are trying to achieve technical implementation of a quantum computer. Using it, we orient ourselves in a physical world, but as soon as a computer is quantum one, we can glance at other temporal levels of reality. The offered hypothesis about nonlinear quantum computer in a brain may be developed in various areas, both classic, like a creation of an artificial intelligence, and esoteric ones. For example, a possibility to translate esoteric techniques, training methods, to more intelligible language in terms of quantum computer programming.